Have you ever considered the loveless marriage? Perhaps your husband has cheated on you, or maybe perhaps it's that she has cheated on you. You know, this is the subject of today's webinar. Hey everyone, James Nussbaumer, and thanks for joining me in an Everyday Miracles webinar. Not to be confused with my podcast. This is a live webinar for my subscribers on my list. And if you're not a subscriber and you've stumbled into this with at YouTube or on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, hey, just click on the link somewhere and you'll see how to join as a subscriber for free. But we're going to talk today about the marriage trouble, the loveless marriage, the husband cheated on me, help my marriage. I'm going to share some great thought-provoking thoughts and profound statements from A Course in Miracles. But bear in mind, it's at the end of the day, for me, and for those of you that know me, know that I write all day long. The third book of my series is just out, called And Then I Knew My Abundance. The other two, The Master of Everything. Master of Everything was the first book. It's subtitled the story of mankind in the world of illusion we call life, and then Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom, Lessons from A Course in Miracles, and the third book, And Then I Knew My Abundance. So excuse me if I stumble over my words a little bit. It's at the end of the day, and I do this a lot, and I'm just a little kind of exhausted, but I'm really enthused about this subject today. Signs your marriage is failing, relationship healing. Who out there listening to me has never been in a failing marriage? I have. For those of you that know me, I certainly have, and I know that I'm not alone. So let's talk about relationship struggles. And this led to my good friend who is celebrating. When he and his wife were married, and after like about 20 years, they had split, and it was a very nasty situation. But they had 2 children, and in the meantime, when they were growing up, for some reason they celebrated Labor Day at the end of the summer. It was a thing for them where they'd head off to different vacation spot around the Labor Day weekend, because then they knew the kids were going to go back to school, and that was a good thought. So they felt that that was something that they united with in their marriage. And so now my friend is struggling because he's trying to get over that relationship breakup, and he reminisces on the days when they, and we just had Labor Day here in the United States of America. Which really, if for those of you that aren't in the United States of America, there's a lot more to Labor Day. But basically, you can say, if you're not an American listening to this, you can say that a Labor Day kind of in America symbolizes the end of the summer, on to school, college breaks, and all that. So let's talk anyways about marriage trouble and how to begin, relationship healing. And by the way, there are some people messaging in right now, and not everyone will I be able to get to. I'm only going to answer a few questions because my time is limited, but I'm seeing people signing up. So if you're not a member, if you're seeing this later on YouTube and you're not a member of my subscription list, please join, and there will be a link there at YouTube in the description area down below that you can access that will get you to my newsletter list, where then you are invited to my weekly webinars. So today's subject is, are you having marriage trouble? Perhaps saying that, your wife or husband sadly has cheated on you, or seeing signs your marriage is failing. And I'm going to answer one question quick from someone who just checked in, and she is asking me. She is a she, and I don't want to say her first name because sometimes I just know certain people, they don't want me to mention their names because they may have someone else that knows them listening in as well. But she says, do you have a feeling that the loveless marriage has potential for reestablishing love and commitment and trust? Okay, so let's talk about that. What she's saying is, if you have a feeling that the loveless marriage has potential, if you're in a loveless marriage, does it have potential to rebound, so to speak, and come back to life to reestablish love and trust? Now, by the way, let me say that I by no means am a marriage counselor, but I've been through the grind of marriages before. And I've had my share of breakups, but I'm an author of spiritual metaphysical books that help inspire people to redirect the mental power of our mistakes and turn them into positive results before we act on them. And I write from my heart, but I am closely affiliated with some great, great, wonderful PhD marriage counselors. So I get a little bit of training from them. And of course, in my writings and in my books and in my blog articles, I've got hundreds of articles at my website. I hope that you'll watch that. But I'm saying this for those of you that don't know me. So just to kind of extend my qualifications about me giving marriage advice. I'm not really giving a marriage advice. We're holding a webinar about this, and I'm giving my input and responding to other people's input. So now that we got that out of the way, are you screaming inside with thoughts of help my marriage? Just like our friend who just had messaged in, she wants my opinion. Do I feel as though that if there's a feeling that there's lovelessness going on in a marriage, that maybe perhaps it can come back? Well, let's talk about that. There's some great potential for relationship healing. And because you are asking for it is why the potential is there. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because when you ask for something that you really want, then that creates some potential for that to come alive. And let me take a sip of my red tea latte. But that alone is a giant step in rebuilding, your what only seems to be a loveless marriage. So let's go over a principle from the Course in Miracles. And for those of you that know me, know that I write from the principles of A Course in Miracles. I reflect on the principles of A Course in Miracles, and that's how I write from my heart. But for those of you that don't know me and you don't know about A Course in Miracles, there is a link also at YouTube if you're watching this later on in the recorded version. I'll have a link down there that will show you more about that. But let's consider deeply what A Course in Miracles states in this principle. It says, look at the picture, okay? Do not let the frame distract you. Let me share some dialogue, okay, first of all, before we get going here. Now, remember, as we get going through this webinar, for you, my friend who had messaged in, it's like on the side of my screen. So if I'm looking over to the side of my screen, I'm seeing some messages. She had asked, can the loveless marriage revive itself? Okay, so let me repeat that from the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles says, do not let the frame distract you, okay? Only look at the picture. In other words, if there's a beautiful portrait, but it's also got a beautiful, extravagant frame with rubies and all this thing in a wide frame, okay, don't let the frame distract you. Look at the portrait. Is the portrait just as beautiful without the frame? Think about that as we go on here. So let me share some dialogue again, like I said, from a recent Help My Marriage case scenario that it went on, which basically involved my friend that I was talking to you about. But with our marriage in trouble, this man had said to me, my friend, he had said, we have turned down, the picnics through the summer, the family reunions, and I guess I will just try to make it through, he was saying. Go through the motions. Well, many others told me pretty much the same thing from some other messages that I had gotten prompting me to do this webinar. Some were going to do some things for the sake of the kids. One couple I knew were married forever. They really didn't want to be together, but they said, let's just go through the motion for the sake of the kids. Well, that's admirable, and that does show some love right there too, because it is important that we worry about our kids. But a relationship crisis really does that. It confuses us and gets us all over the place mentally. Believe me, I know. And luckily, I've been able to, my relationship crises in the past that I've been able to, learn from those mistakes and turn things around. And that's the purpose of this webinar, hoping that you can do the same thing. So it all ends up spreading and taking over more and more of our life when we don't get a grip on it. I was chatting with the other friend, another friend, but similar. Okay, another friend who's a good golf buddy of mine, and he had said that, with the marriage trouble that he's experiencing, he was saying that, he had other plans with a golf vacation with his friends where he would need to go away for like 3 or 4 days, but it got to the point where his wife wouldn't let him do that. And she was, by the way, if you hear emergency vehicle going around in the background here and from my studio, because I'm right near the street, don't worry, they're not coming to get me. But so he had decided that, he had said to her, listen, I'm going on this golf vacation with my friends. It's our annual thing, and it has nothing to do with my love for you, but I'm going on this. And she wanted him not to because, and anyways, over that situation, they broke up. So my other friend, about the Labor Day weekend deal, was saying, it's Labor Day here in the United States, and it's a time for us to, the kids are grown. So my wife and I, and the kids were grown, and that's kind of why we split. It's kind of like we had this thing going on all the time through our marriage. The kids growing up, we celebrated Labor Day, the end of the summer, going back to school, and it's kind of like they didn't have anything to share anymore. And there was a lot of other things that led to rocky roads for them. But they had split, and they're divorced now, both in touch with their children who live in different parts of the country. One's in Colorado and another one in Nevada. And so they get along well. I mean, the whole family unit, but it's a split up family. So let's look at something. Let's consider 2 things when in a marriage crisis. First of all, is there any relationship breakdown? Okay, and number 1, if there is there any life enjoyment left? Number 2, is there any efforts to improve? Is there any willingness in you to improve, to bring back that life enjoyment? Or maybe not really bring it back, maybe just uncover it, because for some reason it's been covered up by a bunch of cloud cover that we can call the ego-based mind, which is filled with fear and doubt, criticism, judgment, pointing the finger at people. That's what the ego is about. So maybe we need to understand a little bit about our own ego-based mind. In the old days, we'd think about an ego, we just think, oh, he's being egotistical. She's egotistical. Well, let's don't look at it that way. Let's look at it as though that we all have the ego, because as humans, we are ego, and an ego believes in separation. Separation is about doubt, fear, judgment. When we don't feel whole, W-H-O-L-E inside, when we don't feel at one with our Creator, guilt comes through because we're not feeling at one, and that leads to fear and doubt. So let's do something here. Let's don't let the crisis of not going on that family picnic force you into hibernation. Let's decide to get out and do something together, maybe through that weekend where you're having problems, but you don't want to go to the family reunion. Why not go there anyways and just take that time to sort some things out and try to maybe let some cloud cover dissipate and see the realness. I want to say realness and not reality, but the realness within both of you. So, while it might also seem like the choice for, it might not seem like the choice for healing, so to speak, is in your hands. You may figure, we need healing, but I don't know how to go about it. So if that is the case for you, let me share a principle from the Course in Miracles that states, for here is only healing. already complete and perfect. In other words, you really don't have to heal because you already are healed and perfect and complete. But what you do have to do is let the cloud cover of the ego-based mindset in you, which is nothing but fear, doubt, judgment, criticism, pointing the finger at others, let that fade away. And you do that through forgiveness. And when you forgiveness, the real meaning of forgiveness means overlooking that cloud cover by looking beyond it to the light that you really are, which does not have that judgment and criticism. So let's get moving on, because I've got to keep a look at my timer here in the area of because I'm doing the operation by myself here. So let's talk about the first one, which was life enjoyment. So many times in the middle of crisis, a marriage in trouble or otherwise, maybe a significant other relationship, there's a tendency to become unidimensional. Let me explain that. And the crisis spreads to the space allowed of all life. Let me explain that too. Okay, the Labor Day problem that my friend was talking about is probably a little more quiet and still compared to a lot of other people's problems. But let's just say that you have the choice to either join in the slow motion or decide to dig in and do a little self-improvement. In other words, over that long weekend, let's just say that you go to that family reunion, that picnic in the summertime, and you and your spouse are not getting along, but it's a long weekend. Why don't you go to the picnic together? And while you're there at the picnic together, maybe you can enjoy each other while you're each digging in deep to understanding that you need some little bit of self-improvement in each of you to bring the two of you together. That could make a relaxing weekend if you would be willing or ready to approach that situation like that. So you can get started right now, with improving your relationship. But second, let's just say that you in your life is bigger than any one facet or any one crisis of your life. Let's just say that what's most important to you is bigger than anything that goes on in life, is better and bigger than anything else that could possibly come to you. But that gets you to the point to where your crisis is one part of your life. So the long weekend will pass. Will your relationship be better at the end of it? Well, one more question coming in on the side of my screen. How do we improve that? If you want a little recommendation, let me make a suggestion for the improvement part. And this comes from my heart that I've expanded on from a real PhD marriage counselor that I am affiliated with, that gives me lessons on things that I can write about. And then I turn that around and write from my heart into my blog articles. But he had said that work on the marriage for you people that are saying, well, the long weekend went past, but still I see there's more improvement needed. Work on the marriage. Make that a commitment. If you want to make it a commitment, then that means there's real love there. If you don't want to make it a commitment, then there's no love there. You can't make it a commitment just for going through the motions or just for money reasons or whatever. We all have problems as humans. We all face different scenarios in our lives. So when we can come together and say, honey, let's work on our marriage. Do you agree? And she says, honey, I do agree. Let's get to work on our marriage. We've got some things we got to work out, but let's do it. If you can't come to those terms, then you're going to need deeper advice. So work on yourself and work on the relationship struggles. Now, let me add here, learn more right here. So anyways, you who had just mentioned in asking me about what to do over the long weekend, I hope that answered your question. When you say you still feel you need self-improvement, which means open up the dialogue between the two of you. And if you don't want to open up the dialogue between the two of you, that means you really don't want to be connected. The reason you want to open up the dialogue is because you know there's some connectedness there that wants to experience the connection. But there's some cloud cover. There's just some things getting in the way. And that's okay. When you can embrace that and look at it that way, that you need to let some things fade away, some cloud cover, some stupidness, things that maybe you said to each other that you really didn't mean, that kind of cloud cover needs to fade away. So let's learn more right here. And what I mean by that, when I say let's learn more right here about what I'm saying, is that I am pulling for you. Because, when that holiday weekend or that long weekend that you took off and you're trying to get things together, if you still are seemingly feeling that there's a loveless marriage crisis, well, right now, then make a mental choice. Make a mindful choice that what will you do for some enjoyment this weekend then? If you're not going to go to the family reunion over the weekend with your spouse or you're having trouble with, what else are you going to do? What will you do for a little improvement then on your own this weekend? While he goes to the family reunion and you stay at home, will you do anything on your own to decide what needs to be done here? So wherever you are, whatever has happened, today starts a new journey. Every day is a new opportunity for a new, brand new pathway, a new journey. So, a new process for healing, can we say? Why not? Where you spend your time working on a little self-improvement this weekend really does, even with a slower weekend around, it's the long weekend, it's some kind of, maybe that can fine-tune some things in your psyche. So be sure to grab onto that idea and just, understand that we're all in this together. And if you're having a problem in a spousal relationship, a significant other relationship, and you can't come to terms because you feel you are apart, well, then it's time to just separate and go apart and start over again. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But if you really don't want to do that, outside of monetary reasons, if you really don't want to separate because you just know that there's still a spark in there, then that right there tells you that it's not a spark. It's a real live flame of love that's within you. The only reason you see it as a spark is because there's so much cloud cover covering the light, and it only appears to you as a spark. So I hope that answered your questions, everyone. And I wish this webinar could have went on a little bit more with more visitors. We had a few, and there's a couple other people I'm looking at on the side of my screen here that have said a few things. One person had said in real quickly, what about the tendency of time? How much time does it take to work out a relationship? But, all I can say there is if you're both willing and ready together to work out the problem, then that can minimize the length of time. But time, to answer that question, time, whatever amount of time it is, heals. And as the Course in Miracles terms the Holy Spirit, your inner divine self, the Holy Spirit uses time on your behalf to heal whatever's going on in your life. I hope that made sense, and I hope you appreciated today's webinar. Please join me. You can find out more at my website, jamesnussbaumer.com. Excuse me. And hope to see you signing up for my newsletter. And we'll go from there. Until next time, God bless.